Good evening, everybody. Came on a couple minutes earlier than what I said, so I'll just wait and see if anybody starts to follow. And then we'll get into a little chat about therapeutic movement for massage therapists. If you are tuning in right now, give me a hi or give me a like so that I know you're there. Leave a comment, and hopefully we can have a little bit more of a chat. So we'll see if anybody jumps on tonight. But in the meantime, I will just start out with introducing myself, because I get the feeling that a lot of people don't know that I am the one behind this page and this website. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Jamie Johnson, and I'm the founder of the MTDC. Started the blog, I think, 5 or 6 years ago now, all with the intent of helping other massage therapists get better in practice and to kind of help the profession to move things forward. So in addition to that, a little while ago, we started the podcast, the Massage Therapist Development Initiative, that I do with Eric Purvis. So we get some information out there every couple weeks. But biggest thing I think that I want to do is help you. My goal all along has been to help other massage therapists. So for the past few years, I've been teaching and basically trying to raise more awareness around therapeutic movement and therapeutic exercise for massage therapists, because I feel like we don't use it as much as we should. And depending on what part of the world you're in, it might be part of your scope of practice. It might not be. But I know one thing for sure is that movement is part of everybody's scope of practice. So I actually, with the blog that I put out earlier this week, somebody emailed me about it and said, in a lot of parts of the US, doing exercise is not part of your scope with patients. However, I know that doing active range of motion and passive range of motion is in your scope. So this is where I get a little bit confused about it. And I know that everybody says, well, exercise prescription is not part of your scope, but you can do movement during your treatment with your people. And I think as a whole, as a profession, we don't do enough of this. And I really want to encourage people to start doing more of it, because my honest belief is that everything we do with our hands is great, but we reinforce it a lot more by doing movement after our treatment. So I believe that movement and exercise is a way to reinforce everything that we do while the patient's on the table, and it creates more self-efficacy for the person, because then they can go home and become more involved in exercise and movement, depending on what their favorite thing to do is. So part of the reason for this live tonight is because of a quote that I saw from our friend Nick Timonello earlier this week. And Nick's a great guy, and he does a lot of education and pain education for personal trainers. But the quote that he put up, and I had to write it down, so I have to read it off, is that trainers fail when they started trying to turn everyone into weightlifters, bodybuilders, or corrective therapy patients instead of more fit and functional adults who can enjoy life. And I looked at that statement, and that's not restricted to just trainers. I think that's applicable to almost anybody who does therapeutic movement or therapeutic exercise within the manual therapy community. Love it, Verena. And the client seems to do more movement when they leave. I 100% agree with you. That's great. So back to the issue that I have. Well, not the issue that I have with the statement. I think the statement's totally accurate. Is that I think we try to make things too complicated. And I know that as massage therapists, one of the things that we tend to do, and I don't know if it's strictly a confidence thing or the reason why, but I think we refer out for this stuff a lot more than just keeping it in-house and doing it with patients ourselves. So when I look at that statement and Nick says, the trainers have basically lost their way because they're trying to, build up huge muscle, and they're trying to, just take somebody who needs some help and turning them into a bodybuilder. Well, I think especially for what we do, the last thing that we ever need to worry about is turning somebody into a bodybuilder. But I think we still refer out way too much, rather than just keeping the exercise in our treatment room. And I think part of the issue with that as well is that we quite often aren't confident enough, because we're sitting there and we're going, well, we don't have a gym and we don't have all this equipment and we're just in a small treatment room. What can I really do? Well, the reality is you can do a lot. You can do just about any kind of rehab exercise that you need to do with your patients in your treatment room, on your table, and a lot of it can even be done during treatment. It's just a matter of understanding how to do it and when to do it. So when we look at somebody who maybe has an injury, understanding the stages of the healing process and understanding when to intervene with specific movements. And when I say specific, I don't mean that it has to be like a specific squat. When I say specific, I mean an isometric, a concentric, or an eccentric load or exercise for the injured area. Because part of the issue is, I think we've been led down this path to believe that we have to be really specific with exercise, and the reality is we don't. The body is very smart, and when you start to load an area, the body recognizes what's going on. And for instance, it would be really hard to load the knee without loading the hip and the ankle. So we look at these courses that are offered out there that are like specific functional movements and all that. Well, the reality is any kind of movement is functional because it's getting the person back to what they enjoy doing. So I think a lot of those things are the reasons why we as massage therapists aren't doing as much in the way of prescribing exercise to our patients. But it's a really important thing for us to do, not only to help the patient, but also to help our practice. Because how many times have you referred somebody out to a physio or a trainer to go and do some exercise, and then you don't see them again? And it's not I'm not saying anything bad about the person that you've referred them to, but how often does that happen? And then they end up going to that clinic, or they end up consistently going over there, when the reality is you could have done all the stuff with them and put the money back in your pocket rather than referring these people out. And I really believe that if we had more confidence around this stuff, we'd be able to keep people in-house more. And if you follow what the research is saying, it also shows that we most likely have better outcomes by incorporating more movement and exercise into our treatments than the outcomes that we're currently having. And I think that's what all of us want for each of our patients, is to have better outcomes. So how great would it be to create better outcomes, or help create better outcomes for these people without having to refer them out, to have the confidence to do certain exercise and certain load with your patient while they're in your treatment room, and give them the confidence that when they go home at the end of the day, they can go and do those movements and they can go and do the things that they enjoy. Because exercise doesn't have to be super complicated. The biggest thing that we're usually trying to do is just getting people back to doing the things that they love. And I think one of the two examples that I commonly use is, it might just be that the person's goal is to be able to pick up their kids. That's very specific to them, but we're not going to look at like super specific exercises that are going to allow them to do that. It might be that they just want to go and work in the garden, and they want to be able to do that pain-free. So we can look at different strategies of how to gradually expose them to those activities, to be able to show them that they're safe to move. And one of the big ways that we do that is by developing a pain analogy. And when we have a really good pain analogy, it helps us to demonstrate to people that, not that I don't want to say that there's not anything wrong with them, but there's not necessarily any tissue damage that's going on. So they're not broken, I think, is the biggest thing that we want to point out. And once we have a good pain analogy and we can talk to them about that, we can show them that going and doing movement is safe because there hasn't been significant tissue damage, depending on what injury they've gone through. But if you can start to break down, some of these steps of having a good pain analogy, being able to talk to your patients about what's going on with them, and then understanding that they can adapt to movement and we can use different ways to move in order to get them to accomplish their goal. So, I had a patient a couple of weeks ago who hurt their back on the job, and his biggest concern was being able to bend down and pick his kids up. So we're in the treatment room, and I said, okay, well, I basically put a medicine ball on the floor, and I was like, pick that up for me. And when they just hinged at the hip and bent down and picked it up, they were like, yeah, that worries me a little bit. It's a little bit sore. And I just sat there and said, okay, well, let's change how you pick it up. So we did more of a squat where they were able to grab the medicine ball and stand up, and they could do that pain-free. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just change it so that that's how you're picking your kids up. And then we use some exercise bands to go through the movement a few times to the point that he could squat, pick up, put the exercise band up over his head, and he felt really confident that at the end of the day, he could go home and pick his kid up. So most of the time, especially for us as massage therapists, that's the kind of exercise stuff that we need to do. That's the kind of stuff that we need to worry about, because while some of us might be rehabbing really specific injuries, for the most part, when people are coming in, there's not anything that's catastrophically wrong with them. So if we can just work on getting them moving better or moving easier and instill that confidence in them that it's safe to move, that they're not going to cause more tissue damage, that they're not going to cause more injury, then we can have a lot more success and greater success in building resilience in them so that when they go home, they can go and do that stuff. So, some of that stuff is just understanding how to load tissue and when to load it during the healing process. And a lot of it is just about communication with our patients. So what I've done is basically taken all that kind of information and condensed it into an online course. So the course is open until next Thursday, and I put a link to the sales page in the comments. And I'd love to see as many of you in there as possible, because I truly want to help you and help our profession and also help your patients. And I want to instill more confidence in you that you can do this stuff with your patients in your treatment room without a bunch of fancy equipment. And hopefully that's also going to put some more money in your pocket, because you're not having to refer out so much. And I know that not all of us are in this for the money, but we still need to make a living. So if you can do more stuff in-house with your people, I think it's going to benefit your practice as well. So take a look in the comments, and there's a link in there to the course. I hope to see lots of you in there, because we're going to build up a community of people within the course, within a Facebook group when you register for the course, where we're going to interact with each other a lot in order to build up your confidence through the duration of the course, to be able to do all this kind of stuff. So I hope to see you there. Like I said, it's going to be open until next Thursday, and the course will start next Friday. And I'm going to do some more Facebook Lives, and if you're on my email list, you're going to get emails about it. But really hope to see you on the inside of the course, because not only do I want to help you, I want to get to know you, and I want to help your practice. I want to make your practice more enjoyable, and I want to create those better outcomes for you and your patients. So I hope to see you on the inside, and we will all be on here chatting again soon. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Go Leafs. Leafs are on right now.